Who better than Derek, Pat, Andrew, the wrestling crew? Man, they bout to put an end to y'all careers like a finishing move. They bout to give y'all facts on these cats that's fighting on these mats. Y'all can't see them like John Cena. Even if y'all had 20/20 vision, y'all better listen, pay attention, and take notes down, and realize that it's not your time now. And watch these three kings take the crown. Hey, hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is none other than number one Brian Johnson, and you're listening to, of course, the number one podcast in all professional wrestling. That is Wrestling IQ 101.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Wrestling IQ 101. My name is Andrew, alongside Derek and Pat.
What's up, guys? Hey, what's going on?
And you can also find us here on YouTube and WrestlingIQ101.com. And we are sitting with Nikki Addams. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks guys for having me on the show. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great.
Doing great.
Good. Glad to hear. It's always positive to hear people are doing well. You know, there's too much going on in the world,
So, Nikki, can you tell us maybe how you got started in wrestling?
Absolutely. I've been watching wrestling ever since I was a little girl. I was watching it with my dad. Once I understood that I could train to become a wrestler, that was really all I could focus on. So, I mean, my parents obviously were thinking that it was a phase that I was going to outgrow. So I was kind of like, yeah, okay. But basically what I did was when I was starting to get older is I went to school and they tried to pay for that. I made sure I got everything I needed taken care of. I was able to live independently. And then I started to look into schools that I wanted to train at. So I lived on my own and I was able to support myself. That way my parents couldn't be like, what are you doing? You can't do this. Like, I pretty much had, as cliche as it sounds, all my ducks in a row. And I started to research it, and I came across NYWC, and I sat in on a class, and I signed up that day.
So you grew up watching wrestling.
Yeah.
Who were some of your favorite wrestlers?
I'm always going to love Sean, but I love Brett also, but for different reasons. But I also really always loved Ted DiBiase. I figured, to me, I was able to learn a lot from him. And he entertained me when I was a kid, and I didn't realize I was going to learn so much from him. He entertained you, and he didn't need a title to captivate your attention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Nikki, when you were in training, I have to imagine you would have been probably one of the only women there, right?
When I first started, there was the girl that started a week before me, and she ended up leaving shortly after. And then shortly after I got there was another girl that started, who was Violet Stevens, Chiplin Stevens' girlfriend, at NYWC. And her and I wrestled quite a bit, and unfortunately she got a pretty severe knee injury and had to stop wrestling, but it was her and I for a while. And then Brittany Savage came in and started wrestling her for a while too, so I mean it was three of us for a long time, which I was relieved, obviously, because, I'm stepping into a guy's world, and NYWC wasn't used to having girls that would come around and at least laugh, they expected you to come in and leave, so at first they were kind of like, oh, it's a girl, yeah, right, but that was, so far, up until that point, I mean, all the girls pretty much would try it out and leave, so I kind of understand why that was their mentality, but, Brittany had been wrestling for a little bit of time before me, like a year or two. And she came in and she was willing to work with us and help us out. And Violet came shortly after me, so we were pretty much married to each other. So we became pretty close, and we were going to stick it out together.
So, like you said, it was a guy's world. What adjustments did you have to make going from training predominantly men to wrestling women?
Well, they definitely, the transition, it was easier for me to start wrestling guys. The transition into wrestling girls actually was a little bit easier. It was weird at first because, there were certain things that, you wouldn't be able to do with girls necessarily, depending on, what they wanted to do or, how far along they were or things like that, or, say you wanted to do a certain move and that required the person to be bigger than you or to be like a supportive base, maybe that wasn't going to be possible. But the transition wasn't that hard. I mean, I would work with Violet on the regular as well as Brittany. And when I'd be in training or taking these classes, I would work with the guys too. So I kind of had an equal, it was like an equal thing. It's like I worked with the guys as much as I worked with the girls. I did enjoy working with the guys as much as I could because I knew once, I was on shows and stuff like that, I would be with girls because intergender wrestling was not something that was considered a thing to do, at least at that time.
So going back to when you were watching wrestling,
right?
Did you see the transition between like the women managers to becoming wrestlers and becoming like Barbie dolls and stuff like that in between? And that's you still wanted to become a wrestler after all that stuff?
Yeah, I did. I mean, when I was watching it, I fell in love with Sherry.
Okay.
I also really loved watching Medusa.
Okay.
And then she became a Wonder Blaze, and I enjoyed watching her and Sherry regularly. And then, Lita, Trish, Molly Holly, and that kind of stuff started to come up, and they were great. Like, even if, like, they didn't start necessarily where you thought that they were going to be, like, because you're always categorized, like, female, male. Like, even if you didn't think they were going to work really hard and get to where they were, like, they proved you wrong. Like, Trish ended up blowing everybody away.
Yeah.
Lita was innovative. Victoria, one of my favorites, and I did get the privilege of working with her last month. Incredible overall, still. And then things transitioned, and it took a turn, that obviously as a female I really didn't enjoy. Not to knock anybody, it's really to each his own, like whatever they prefer. There are some people that want to do that, and there are some that don't. Like, I'm too insecure to go out there and do like that Barbie doll thing. Like, I don't think I would fit that mold.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, like, I viewed myself as I was going to learn, and I was going to be considered one of the guys or one of the boys. Like, that was the mission. To try to be in their league and be respected as one of them, and hope that women's wrestling would turn around and go back into, how it is now, because women's wrestling it's exploded at this point, and it's getting the respect, and like the women out there that are busting their ass are getting the respect that they deserve. It's finally turned, like, now women are main eventing and stuff like that, and it's incredible.
Now, with the explosion in women's wrestling today, do you think it's made it more difficult for women to get into the wrestling business?
That's a good question, because I've actually never thought about that before. Yes and no. Like, as far as no goes, because it's more accepted, and like people are going to be like, oh, there's a girl. They're not going to necessarily be like, yeah, right, she's not going to laugh. They're just going to give you a chance to see what you can do. But yes, as in, they're going to expect you to bust your ass, and they're not going to accept, if someone wanted to go in that, like, maybe necessarily didn't want to take it too seriously or something, like, that's not going to be accepted. So if you're going to come and enter that world, you better be ready to try your hardest, be willing to learn, be respectful, and bring your A game. Like, you're just not going to float by, and people aren't going to be like, let you float by and be doing things wrong, but be looking at your face and saying, oh, you did great. Like, that's no longer going to be a thing that happens.
Yeah, and I think women nowadays in wrestling, they're a lot more technical wrestlers than they used to be. Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think? Can you see that in training from when you first started to right now? Do you see like differences in like how hard training is as compared to the way it might have been when you first started?
I do. Everywhere I've seen, they all kind of start the same way, which I think is great. They start you on the floor, where you learn your basics, you learn your walk-ups, your chain wrestling and that kind of stuff. Then you'll graduate to going into the ring to learn bumps. And then when you have all that put together, then you go on to learning, like, moves. And then when you get that together, they go on to teach you how to put a match together and, like, how to make it, work out, when, like, how to make something flow together when you're working with another person, because you can't just wrestle yourself,
Yeah.
For me, training, like, I know for me, like, I hear stories and, you hear a bunch of stuff on, like, how hard training was for people. My training wasn't the easiest, but I know it wasn't the most difficult training ever either, Like, I know, like, when you hear stories, I'll hear stories, people bring up stories of the doghouse and like how hard things were. I mean, I definitely was given a hard time, but definitely not the worst time possible, you know? So, but I need to be respectful and I need to take it seriously. I mean, I planned on taking it serious the minute I walked in, like I wasn't there to mess around, but, you know, they definitely gave me a run for my money, like when I got into my first mini match in practice, and this is like the first time I was actually going to work on putting a match together. I think I was in a tag match, and they definitely gave me a rough time. I guess they wanted to see if I was going to come back the next day, and clearly I did. You know, I'd been training for a while, but I was pretty sore. I was black and blue. I had swelling and stuff on my legs, but, you know, that's pretty much nothing compared to some of the other trainings that have happened in the past.
What is your opinion on some of the major promotions starting to use like fitness models opposed to the more technically trained wrestlers, like people like Eva Marie and like Nikki Bella?
Well, that seems to definitely have changed significantly. It seems like everyone's looking into a wrestling background now, or people that are going to start training with them at least, you know, so like the Bella twins, like they necessarily didn't come in as wrestlers, but they made a big change. Like, you know, like they actually took it seriously and became better and better and better. Like, so it obviously was something that they ended up developing a passion for. So, I mean, if they were doing that, I guess, you know, like they see something in that person. I mean, Eva Marie, like, whether you love her or hate her, I mean, she definitely did train. She's done her best, you know? Just because, like, not everyone, like, everyone's built to get to a different level. You need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. Like, I can't do certain things, you know? So I just really tried my best to, like, emphasize my strengths, you know what I mean?
So, at WrestlePro, it was announced that you are the sister of Nikos Ricos. How is your relationship with Nikos?
Well, you know, he is a good brother, so I have to say that. You know, he's looked out for me. I'm excited that we've now announced that we are siblings, and I have a brother I can count on. And I absolutely adore Team Espana, so I'm very excited for Team Espana.
Yeah, that was a big night for
them. And my name's in there, too. My name's in there, even though it wasn't meant to be, but it just fits. So it's a win.
It is a win. So you get to work with Coach D and Hose B and Hose A. What are some, like, how's that chemistry like when you guys are hanging out and stuff like that?
Well, the show about a week ago was the first time they introduced me, and I came out with them. But it was a good feeling. It was a good vibe. I really did enjoy working with them. And they are now the Trios champions, so all went well. Coach D took it a little rough, but, you know, sometimes you got to sacrifice it for the team, you know what I mean?
That always seems to happen
Coach
to him.
D takes it rough all the time.
I know. But you know what? He's good like that. He knows what's for the greater good, so.
Yeah, he's one of, like, the funniest people and the nicest guys that we've been talking to since we started this podcast, so.
He's definitely a nice guy.
So, I wanted to ask you about WrestlePro. You've been having a couple matches there. Have you enjoyed working at WrestlePro? And is that something you're going to look forward?
I have. I absolutely think they are one of the most professional companies I've worked for. I really enjoy the fact that and I'm thankful for the fact that they've given me an opportunity to work for them. It's a place that was always on the list to work for. Okay. So, and now I am lucky enough to actually have that opportunity. They treat me very well. The locker room is respectful, and they are good people. So overall, it's a great place, and I enjoy it.
Do you go up to, like, guys like Moff or Kevin Matthews or any of those guys to look at things that you've been doing or for improvement?
Absolutely. Like, I ask Moff all the time. I've talked to Kevin before, too. You know, he's always very, very busy, so, I mean, him I don't get a chance to ask as much. But I definitely ask Moff frequently, and I also ask Mario Baccara as well. Like, they're definitely in my corner and always willing to help me, and I love them. They're very good people, so I'm lucky enough to have them as resources for help.
Those are some good dudes right there.
Your ultimate goal in wrestling, are you looking to, like, go on to, like, the next level, like maybe an NXT, a WWE, or something like that?
Well, I think for most of us in wrestling, that is the goal. I definitely wouldn't say no if it presented itself. I work hard, you know, every time I'm on a show, like, I would wrestle just as hard for 7 people for 700 people, you know? Like, I put everything I have into it. I want to do my best, have a good match, entertain people. I go to the gym pretty much every day. I'm at wrestling training at least once or twice a week, always working to get better, because, I mean, you're never going to know everything. You're always going to be an open book to absorb more. So I try to work out in different places also, just because it's good to experience other people and other styles. Right now, I'm just trying to expand and get my name out there and definitely do the best I can, and that would be the goal. But, I mean, if it was unfortunately not to happen, I mean, I've already, like, in my mind, because the way I look at it, like, that I went to originally train and do the best I can, it's not really a failure, because I didn't say, like, I won't be 40 years old sitting in my house one day being like, what if I ever went and started training? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I did. I showed up, I signed up, and, you know, it's been 7 years, and here I am.
Yeah. And my next question was going to be, do you think, you know, like, personally, do you think, like, you would be ready for something like that? Because I think, like hearing your name, at least in this area, I feel like you're definitely, like, one of the top, like, independent women wrestlers in this area. And, like, I kind of, like, watch you from when you first started to, like, right now. And, like, you've gotten in, like, amazing shape. And, like, you could just see, like, that you've definitely been, like, training hard and all that stuff.
Well, thank you. That's very complimentary, and I do appreciate that. That is the goal. I've been trying to improve myself on every level possible, you know. And yeah, I mean, can you ever be fully ready for something? I don't know. You know, you can just get yourself to the best you can be. And then, you know what, even if, like, that opportunity presents itself and, like, they want you, they're going to get you to where they want you to be. So, I mean, they're going to work with you, and as long as you have the right attitude, you're respectful, and you're working as hard as you can, really, I don't think there was anything that would, like, stop you from getting to where you want to be or being able to get better.
So, just kind of piggyback on what Derek said, in Warriors of Wrestling, you just had back-to-back wins in singles over both Allie and Victoria. Just kind of go through that and what kind of opportunity that presents itself to you.
Warriors of Wrestling, again, one of the most professional places I've ever worked. I really do enjoy working for that promotion. They take care of me. I'm loyal to them as well. Working with Allie was a great experience. I've worked with her before in the past when she was still under the name Cherry Bomb. She is amazing to work with, very talented, and I think we had a great match. And again, overall, one of the most professional people I've ever worked with. Not like she was willing to work with me. You know, sometimes you come across people that may not be willing to do so. But so that was something, like, that was a big win for me, and I was super thankful for that, and very fortunate. Victoria, that I mentioned, she is pretty much one of my idols up there with Sherry. So that was a very emotional one. I walked out, I was very nervous, and then at the end of it, I'm such a nerd, but I cried. So, but because it's like the most unreal moment of your life. It's like I've been watching this woman, idolizing her for years. And, you know, I was like 11 or 12 watching her when she started wrestling, and now I'm standing across the ring from her. It was so unreal. And, you know, again, so professional, so kind, like so generous. Like the help and everything she offered me and everybody else in that locker room. Like I also participated in the seminar with her. Really one of the nicest people I've met in wrestling and overall. And I'm so happy because I idolize her. And, you know, sometimes they say don't meet your idols.
Yeah.
Wow. She was not a letdown. She was better than I could have ever imagined on, like, every level.
There's also something a little bit more special to that night. You were the main event.
Yeah.
The first time ever, right? So.
Yeah, that was the first ever women's main event, and that gave me extra time to bite my nails and be nervous. So, you know, instead of being like 1 or 2, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all this time to panic. But it was very, like, so I got to wrestle Victoria, I got to be the main event, and I couldn't have asked for, like that match went so well, And then I got to take the Widow's Peak, and nobody's usually excited to take a move like that, but I'm just a little sick in the head, so if I had to take it from somebody, it may as well be her. Couldn't ask for a better choice, right?
Yeah. Actually, a move that nobody really wants to take. You took a sting face from Brooke. How was that?
True. There's nothing like having a nice big ass in your face. At least it was a nice ass, right? You gotta take it. Get a nice one.
Because Rikishi was there teaming up with the Beach Bums, and he gave a sting face, and I have to agree with you. I'm pretty sure you got the better end of that one.
Oh, yeah. I'm very lucky on that end, so.
Now with women main eventing even more nowadays, and like they're constantly, trying to push the envelope in women's wrestling. How do you feel about like women doing the gimmick matches, like, the Hell in a Cell or hardcore matches, ladder matches, things of that nature?
I love it because I've always wanted to be in a steel cage or a Hell in a Cell match because I'm like, I know I can do this and be as good as the guys. So to see other girls doing that and being like, I'm just as good as them, I deserve this spot, whatever you can do, I can do, is incredible to me. Like, there shouldn't be a limitation on, like, if a guy can do something, if a woman works hard, like, she can do it too. So we're less than no one.
So just last week we were talking to DJ Hyde, and he said when he's promoting women's wrestling promotion, it's very different than the traditional one. So when you're competing in an all-women's promotion, is it different than your traditional one?
I would say so, because now you're on a show with all women, which is great because, I love, like, women having these opportunities is incredible. But usually if you're on a show where it's mostly men, like maybe there's one, or maybe even sometimes two women's matches, that's less competition in, like, your area. But I'm hoping that we get to a point where we're not labeling things as women's wrestling or, like, men's wrestling or something, because, we're now entering the intergender era, and, like, women work just as hard. Like, do we necessarily need to put that label on it?
So you've had some cool monikers in the past. Can you tell us maybe how you came up with some of those?
Which one would you want to hear about first?
I guess the Black Rose, that one.
The Black Rose, when I started, I was in the Order of the Black. We were a stable in NYWC. It consisted of myself, Sakeed, Nikki Addams, Apollyon, Rex Lawless, and Crusher Dugan. And later on, Mikey Whipwreck became a member of it as well. They kind of gave that name to me for me. I guess I was like a dark, sadistic character. I had the dark hair, I wore the face paint. I fit into that mold. My middle name is also Rose. I don't usually tell people that, but that kind of played attribute to as well. But we weren't going to refer to me as a red rose or a white rose. No, I'm fairly a sad soul, so black was the only color that would be fitting of that. So. And
then Superstar, how'd that come about?
Superstar came up from when I teamed with Nikki Addams at NYWC. Nikki and I were really great friends, and we came up with Rack and Sack. Later on, he became my manager at Valkyrie Women's Wrestling, and we were going in a different direction where I was once again not going to be, a fan favorite or a baby face. I had to be not so nice, and he referred to himself for years as Superstar Nikki Addams, and that was kind of the choice. They're like, we want to call you Superstar Nikki Addams and have you managed by Nikki. So that's how I took on that moniker.
And then the last one is the Rack.
The Rack from teaming with Nikki for years, because we were very good friends. We always had this joke before we even teamed. Like, he would refer to me as Rack, and my comeback to that was I called him Sack, and then we laughed and we just called ourselves Rack and Sack. And then we were told we were going to team at NYWC, and we're like, oh, this is going to be great. So we called ourselves Rack and Sack. And that was pretty much how it took off. We teamed for quite a bit. We became, he had been NYWC Tag Team Champion before, but I was the first female to do so. And then, we worked together. And then for Warriors does this other thing where they do these intergender matches on these other days that aren't on their main show, and I teamed with him several times there, so we were Rack and Sack. And because I had built that up at Warriors. For a bit, I was billed as the Rack Nikki Addams. Now I've kind of departed into a different direction, so I no longer use that moniker.
Now, kind of like with names like that, like the Rack and stuff. Do you think that kind of like stereotypes like women, or kind of like adds like a hurdle to like jump over with women in professional wrestling?
Yes and no. I mean, as Rack and Sack, no, because it was evidently pointing out the fact that we were an intergender tag team.
Yeah.
Like, clearly we're not going to be calling me Sack, even though that would be quite humorous. Like, it was kind of just, we made light of it. Like, we were pointing, hey, we're an intergender tag team. Hey, we're best friends. Hey, we're Rack and Sack.
Yeah.
And then, like, I was in association with that team for a while, but once, that team, we weren't really teaming anymore, I was just like, this isn't going to it's not going to stand up to what it needs to stand up on its own, and that's where a stereotype could come into play.
Yeah.
And you don't want to point out the fact or, like, have that. Like, because it's just, like, when we were a team, it was humorous, it was light, we were a fun team, but it was no longer needed or going to do the job it was supposed to do if it was just me.
Nowadays, do you ever get a chance to keep up with, like, the current product, like, on TV, WWE, or anything like that?
I do. I keep up with it for the most part, and if I don't catch it right away, I always catch up with it later. That's the great thing about DVR or the network and stuff like that. You can always catch things.
Yeah. Who's some of your favorite women wrestlers today?
In WWE or in general?
Oh, yeah, in general or WWE, whichever one.
Well, I absolutely love Sasha Banks. I think she's phenomenal. I love Charlotte as well. I mean, the girls in WWE are absolutely incredible, and they're killing it. Like, I love Sasha, Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, all of them. I still really enjoy Angelina Love, who I got to work with as well, which I'm lucky for, and she's so incredibly talented. Obviously, Mickey James, who just came back.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of cheerleader Melissa as well, and Madison Eagles, and I absolutely think Sue Young is incredible.
What about Santana Garrett?
Oh, I think she's great too. I got to work with her one time about a year and a half ago in North Carolina. She's definitely like the whole package. Obviously, she's beautiful. Obviously, she's extremely talented, charismatic. She stands out. She catches your eye. Very talented girl.
You got to wrestle one of my favorites, Sarah Del Rey. How was working with her, wrestling her?
Again, unreal. Because, I mean, watching all of her stuff and knowing that, like, her character was kind of on the dark side at times as well, but she referred to herself as the Death Ray. She's incredible. She was. She still is. Now look at where she is now. That speaks volumes. I was nervous. That was still pretty early on into my career. And, but she took care of me so well. Like, she was like, you'll see, it's going to be great. And, we had, like, a nice 10-minute match. It was a time limit draw. And I learned so much. She was so incredibly generous and giving. Like, if I ever got the opportunity to work her again, obviously, I would kill for that moment. Yeah. But, you never know. You never know what the future holds, right?
You mentioned Angelina Love, and I saw a promo that you cut on her online. Were you in, like, a party or something?
I was going to ask it, too.
When you were doing that? Like, what was going on?
A party never stops for Nikki Addams. I was at this place on Long Island. It's called The Mansion. It's in Glen Cove, and it's just a place where you can hang out. And, another thing I like to run on is that ladies love cool Nikki, kind of like LL Cool J. You were burned by a man, I'm going to take care of you. So I'm always in that relaxed mode. Relax, it's cool. We're here to hang out, and I had a lot to say. I had my wine. I was, feeling good. It was okay. And clearly it loosened me up, and I had a lot to say, right?
Actually, I was going to ask you, who has helped you with your promos? Because they're pretty good.
A lot of people have. I've gotten feedback from people before. The people that record them, there's a referee who works in a lot of the places in the Northeast, Steve Dumang. He will edit them for me, or like he'll give me pointers or whatever. Sometimes we've recorded them, as well as Mike Law. And over like the years, I had a lot of people at NYWC as my influence, like to help me out with that. as well as the talent at Creative Pro, like Pat Buck, Alex Reynolds, Tony Nese. Like, I've had a lot of good people in my ear to kind of give me advice and, like, how to definitely get somebody's attention. I'm also a firm believer that unless you, like, have a pretty big story behind a match, you know, you should probably try, like, definitely less than 2 minutes if possible, unless you have something huge you need to get across. You know, I always try to keep mine to 30 seconds to a minute. Sometimes they're a little bit longer if it's more involved, but I definitely try to keep it below 2 minutes because you want to keep the person's attention. Less is more also, you know, because I feel like if it was me personally, I feel like if I'm going to go longer than that, now I'm just repeating myself. Like, other people might not do that, but, you know, I always have, like, my bullet points on the things I want to get across. If you want to get across the date to get the person watching its attention, the place where you're at, like the company, the venue, who you're wrestling, why that they're a good competitor, but why you're better and why you're going to take it home, you know? So I go by the bullet points of, like, the things I really want to say and get across.
Oh, I wanted to go back. You mentioned Mike Law. You got to actually fight him, wrestle him. How was that?
Oh, in, like, the one-on-one match?
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, I kicked his ass, so he was a good brother. It was fun, though. I've known Mike for a long time. We're pretty good friends, and we decided to have it out with each other, and he lost. Too bad, so sad. Better luck next time.
Another thing.
I wrestled him again, actually, when he teamed with Mark House as the Experience, and my partner was Catri Clockwork Angel, and things did not turn out the way I really wanted that day, so I guess he got his payback right there.
Another one.
Not over, though.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Not over until I say it's over. So.
You got to work with, a couple of weeks ago we had David Addams on, and he was telling us about Debbie Kane. How was it working with her?
I worked with Debbie for a long time. I had quite a few matches with her. It was fun. I mean, to work with her, I mean, she came to NYWC a few years after I did, so, I mean, she got to grow, and, you know, from the first time I wrestled her until, like, the most recent time I wrestled her, there was a big difference. And I think one of our last matches together, I actually watched it, and I was like, wow, I really loved that match, you know? So I was like, that was really good, and I think we told a really good story, and I also think that I do some crazy stuff sometimes, but hey, it's all in the game, right?
We're like naming all these women wrestlers that you wrestled, and even some guys. Now I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. I want to know why Nikki Addams is different from all these other women wrestlers.
Well, I mean, it does. I'm not, for one, saying I'm better or less than. I'm less than no one. You know, no one's better than me. I'm better than no one. You know, that's how I feel like as a person in life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that these people don't train hard, but I mean, I definitely know that I train hard. You know, I'm there every night. I'm always looking to improve. I'm open-minded. You know, you give me an opportunity, I'm most likely going to try it. You know, that's how I went into the intergender thing, and some other girls do that too. I also like to think I'm a pretty good package. You know, there's some people that are characters, and then there's some people that go on the technical ability. I like to think I'm a good, solid combination of both.
Yeah.
You know, you watch me, I'm a character. You know, I'm unique. I'm out there on some level. Like, I'm definitely a little out of my mind. But I'm harmless, so that's what counts. But then, you know, I think that my wrestling ability backs it up as well, you know, and I've evolved a lot over the years. Like, you know, when I first debuted, I was a striker. Then I became more technical. Now I'm a pretty good balance of striking ability, technical wrestling, and even some high-flying stuff. You know, so, and then, you know, I'm going to have a personality to connect with the audience as well, whether I'm a heel or face. Yeah. So I like to think that that's a positive attribute.
Have you ever tried to do, like, you know, any tryouts or anything like that to try to, you know, get to, like, a WWE, Lucha Underground, or anything like that?
I have sent my information out before, and I have been training a lot. So, I mean, there are things that I'm definitely going to be trying, and there's definitely been some other tryout camps that have been announced lately that I'm definitely trying to get involved in. So hopefully that'll definitely happen and take off. You know, that is the goal.
Yeah.
But I'm always updating my information and sending it out because you know what? You never know what's going to happen. Maybe they had no need for you at the time, or maybe, you just keep yourself fresh in their mind. Like, sometimes it happens, like Tony Nese, I mean, he was constantly putting his stuff out there, and look at him now.
Yeah.
Like, if you were told no once, and you just accepted that, then you wouldn't get anywhere. But if you keep at it and know that, like, sometimes it's the right place, the right time, or staying fresh in someone's mind consistently, like, that is the key.
So, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this rack and sack thing here. I just want to know, have you ever had any, like, fan encounters where you were just like, this has to stop? Like, if a guy asked you to send him your underwear, or if you had to, like, block him because he's stalking you on social media, or anything outrageous like that.
I've had some definite interesting weirdos. I can't deny that. But it was never anything like necessarily related to the rack thing. I just think it's unfortunately something that women in wrestling deal with. But you know what? What I've actually been told recently, it's been happening to male wrestlers too.
Oh,
Really?
So I think it's really an equal thing. Like, I've heard some stuff, and I just think, it's something that people in wrestling do encounter.
Wow.
So is this happening to the male wrestlers by male fans?
It's a 90% male fan.
I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but there's stuff definitely going on. Like, I've heard stories about messages that guys have received, and I'm like, holy smokes, it's not just me.
Oh my goodness.
And,
Wow.
yeah. So, I mean, I just, to each his own, like, people say things, they send messages, and sometimes they're harmless, and then sometimes, you're going to have to block them because it got a little weird.
Definitely.
You've had a lot of marquee matches, like teaming up with Jazz, and Victoria. Like, sometimes I feel like some wrestlers don't like when they have to face a bigger name, because sometimes they're a little bit older than them. But does that make you feel good about yourself that they're putting you on the level of maybe like a superstar that's well known?
Absolutely. It's definitely an honor, and that they have faith in you and that you've been working hard, so they recognize the fact that you've been working hard, which is a big thing too. Like, how much you put into it. You hope that people recognize that. So now I definitely see that it is being recognized, and I'm very, like, sometimes it takes a lot for stuff like that to be recognized. So, you just, when the day comes and it finally is acknowledged, you're like, oh, I know that my hard work is paying off and people do see my work. Things like that, so.
And then also you got to be in there with like Antisocial, Sonia Strong, and Michelle D.
With both of them, and we've had some pretty hard-hitting, intense matches, and I think that was, some of my best stuff. I mean, I'm proud of those matches. I've worked Annie twice, and I've worked with Sonia once this past fall at World Finals, and I was looking forward to that, just because, like, again, she's made a pretty good name for herself in this area as well, so I was really looking forward to what it would be like for a Nikki Addams versus Sonia Strong match, and I did not disappoint, and I do hope we get to cross paths in the future as well, because it could only get better, right? Or more intense, or who knows.
And then also you got to wrestle Allie Rex.
Yes, I've worked with Allie a few times.
Yeah, so how was it working with her?
I enjoy working with Allie. She's definitely newer. I've been wrestling a little bit longer, so to work with her and guide her and help her, and like just to see how much she grows, like, because every time I worked with her it would just get better. So I mean, that was always like nice, to know that, like, and you get to know your opponent more each time. So
And I wanted to ask you one last question.
okay.
How'd you come up with your catchphrase, sign my name across your chest and seal it with a kiss?
Well, again, that goes with the gimmick with the drinks, and the fact that, like, and it's true, like, I have, unfortunately, sometimes we encounter situations that aren't great, right? And as much as men do burn and hurt women, I will acknowledge that women equally can do the same to men, But, that was, like, the gimmick. It's like, if your boyfriend forgot you on Valentine's Day, don't worry, I got you. So it's like, you you will get a rose. Like in some of my matches, I've given out throwback.
As far as like future events, what's next events that you have coming up?
I have an event this weekend. It's on Saturday. It's the 25th. It's going to be at Laboom for FTW. It's going to run right before the Evolve show. WrestlePro, there will be an April one. I will be actually have the March 11th show.
Okay.
The date for WrestlePro, hold on 1 second.
It's the 29th, right? 4/29?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got that, and I'm going to see what else I have coming up. April 8th, again, History Will Be Made. That's going to be the Warriors of Wrestling Women's tournament, followed by the actual show where the guys will be wrestling as well. That is April 8th. April 29th, I will be at WrestlePro again. And then I'll be at Warriors and WrestlePro for May and June as well. And my schedule it's filling up, but those are like the mainstays that are a definite go for now.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on social media. On Facebook, it's just Nikki Addams with 2 Ks and 2 Ds. The 2 Ds is important. People usually forget that. So don't forget that. So NIKKIADDAMS. Also on Twitter, I'm at the Nikki Addams. Again, 2 Ks, 2 Ds. And on Instagram, I'm at Nikki Addams. There's no dot on that. Just again, remember the 2 Ks and the 2 Ds, and you will find me.
Well, Nikki, we thank you for your time for this lovely interview. We thank you for answering all our questions, taking time out of your day. We really appreciate everything.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I love doing things like this, so anytime. But I do appreciate you guys wanting to talk to me.
Oh, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you.